Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev says the nation has been subjected to attacks by foreign-trained terrorists. And Russia has sent troops to Kazakhstan as deadly riots still continue in the city of Almaty. And Kazakh police say dozens of demonstrators and a dozen officers have been killed after protests against rising fuel prices escalated into the worst violence in decades. Now, Michal Bardavid reports.
What started as protests against fuel prices has spiraled into something much wider in Kazakhstan. On Wednesday, protesters stormed the president's official residence and set it on fire in a sign of the growing anger boiling over in one of Asia's largest countries. Security forces say they've killed dozens of rioters on the streets of Almaty, the country's financial hub and largest city. Regional neighbors, including Russia, have now sent in troops to help at the request of the Kazakh president, has become a focal point of the demonstrators' anger.
The
terrorist mobs are essentially international. They underwent serious training abroad, and their attack of Kazakhstan should be viewed as an act of aggression.
The trigger for the clashes was a doubling of the price of gas, but the spread of the protests to Almaty and the capital Nur-Sultan signify wider discontent, partly aimed at President Tokayev's predecessor Nur-Sultan Nazarbayev, who'd ruled the country since the collapse of the Soviet Union. Despite stepping down in 2019, many think he still calls the shots.
Lots of versions of what happened here have been told. You have to understand what has happened here. The coiled spring has now been unleashed after 30 years. Look, all of us have been fired upon.
Police say a dozen officers have been killed and more than 350 injured in the violence so far. Blood-stained and burnt-out vehicles, evidence of the casualties on both sides. Further afield, concern is growing over the protests and their impact on the wider region.
Obviously, following with concern and monitoring the situation in Kazakhstan, I think it's very important for all involved in these current events to exercise restraint, refrain from violence, and promote dialogue in addressing all of the pertinent issues.
Despite its vast natural resources, many Kazakhs feel they've been left behind by an elite that's profited from decades of oil-led economic growth. Kazakhstan's government has resigned because of the protests. As for President Tokayev, now backed by foreign forces, he's vowing maximum toughness in his response. On Thursday, thousands gathered again in the city of Aktau in another display of defiance. And with little sign of protesters backing down, the deadly standoff between police and the people may have some way left to run. Michal Bardavid, CGTN.
And for more on this, let's go to Michal Bardavid in Istanbul. Michal, hello there. The first units of Russia's peacekeeping forces have flown in after President Tokayev sought help from the military alliance by the Collective Security Treaty Organization. What role is this troop going to play?
Well, yes, the Russian-led CSTO alliance was very fast to respond to the appeal of support by the Kazakh president. Already we have the Russian troops who have arrived to Kazakhstan as part of the alliance. The overseas force being sent there is reportedly going to total about 2,500 soldiers. Other troops being sent will also be from Belarus, Armenia, Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. They're expected to stay there for several days or weeks, according to a statement made to the Russian news agency. Let's listen to a statement made by the CSTO regarding their mission.
The main tasks of the collective peacekeeping forces of the CSTO will be the protection of important state and military facilities, helping the law enforcement of the Republic of Kazakhstan in stabilizing the situation and returning it to the legal framework. From the Russian Federation, units and military units of airborne troops are taking part.
There was also a statement made by the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, who stated that quote, "We consider the recent events in a friendly country to be a foreign-inspired attempt to use armed and trained groups of people forcibly to undermine the security and integrity of the state." So basically, the statement made from Russia kind of echoes the statement initially made by the Kazakhstan president, who also blamed these demonstrations on foreign-trained armed groups, terrorist groups, according to Kazakhstan president. There was also a statement made by the United States, once again stating that they are monitoring the situation very closely, but also that they are questioning whether the deployment of the forces from Russia, from the Russian-led CSTO alliance, was made legitimately, whether this invitation was legitimate in the first place.
Right, and apart from CSTO, the international community is also watching the situation in Kazakhstan. What are their reactions?
Yes, there was a statement made from Belarus, which is also part of the CSTO organization. The president of Belarus, Lukashenko, stated he called on the protesters to find common ground, to negotiate with the Kazakh president. He stated that it is possible to find common ground with him. And I quote, he said, "It's time to wrap things up. It's necessary to negotiate before everything has gone too far." Lukashenko has stressed that Tokayev, the president of Kazakhstan, is a decent person, that he's a diplomat, and therefore protesters should be able to negotiate with him. He also stated that they should be mindful, the protesters should be mindful that turning the country upside down is easy, but it will be expensive to restore afterwards. He also said this was a message to Belarus as well, of the kind of example of what could happen in the case of these kind of protests. Now, Belarus is one of the CSTO members, sending peacekeeping troops to Kazakhstan, and earlier the foreign ministry had also sent a statement stating that they support the efforts of Kazakhstan administration to restore normal life to the country, and state that Belarus is ready to provide assistance to the friendly Kazakh people and fulfill the alliance obligations.
Thank you very much indeed, Michal Bardavid, reporting from Istanbul.